Thank you so much for joining us this Sunday afternoon. At first, we kick off our network session with this video called 20 Glorious Years. Some of our founders and colleagues who were actually there in Delhi on January 30th, 2002, when the network was launched, share their memories. And then we take a brief look at our history. One member from each of our chapters will walk us through some of the milestones. Do take a look at this video.
The Network of Women in Media India was officially launched on a cold winter's day, Wednesday, January 30th, 2002. That was the last day of the first ever 3-day meeting of Indian media women from across the country. It took place at the India International Centre in New Delhi and included serious talks and discussions, plenty of fun, and above all, the lively, bordering on furious debates that have become the hallmark of NWMI get-togethers.
There was no way of knowing whether this network, non-hierarchical and diverse as it was, would last. But here we are. It's been 2 decades, and I'm glad to say I had a small part to play in the beginning.
What I remember most about that first meeting that we had in Delhi was the laughter and the camaraderie. I mean, it is unusual given that we were almost 100 women, all highly ambitious in this cutthroat world of journalism, where this kind of, solidarity and network building is not the norm.
What I also remember about that year is that just a month after that IIC meeting of NWMI, we actually saw the Gujarat pogrom, the Godhra incident, the riots in Gujarat, the brutality of that. And we all got sucked into reading, reporting, and thinking and talking about that. NWMI Mumbai later actually produced a very good report looking at media analysis of how the media had covered Gujarat in Western India, how the media in Bombay had covered it across many different languages.
We have put together a founding charter reflecting issues of concern relating to media and women in the media. These included job security, working conditions, media content, credibility, ethics, and independence. The remarkable thing is that these are all issues still very relevant 20 years later.
We saw it happen. 100 media women, different regions, languages, backgrounds, building a strong network. That day, the harsh cold winter of Delhi melted into the warmth of solidarity. We saw it happen.
So many of us met, women journalists I had never met before, but there was so much hope and passion in us. And now 20 years later, we are celebrating.
It was a wonderful experience being with all these women journalists, seeing them dressed in gorgeous, colorful saris and dresses, talking, laughing, sharing experiences. It was a great conference.
Bonding over breakfast. Then first day you would just shyly go to your own group or your table, and then the next day you get a little bolder, then the next and the next, and by the time NWMI was born, there was more laughter, there were newer friends you carried back home.
The second national meeting of the NWMI was held in Mumbai in 2004. This featured what might have probably been the first ever discussion on sexual harassment in media workplaces. Women journalists talked about their experiences and, as importantly, the pushback. To date, 15 national meetings have been held in almost as many places across the country and almost every year. The format is usually for 3 days, and apart from the sessions, which are in-depth panel discussions and so on, we also have skill-building workshops. And what are really the highlight of these national meetings is getting to know colleagues from across the country, new ones, and strengthening bonds with our old friends.
We have 17 chapters spread across India. Local chapters meet periodically and organize special events like film screenings, talks, seminars, book launches, exhibitions, and music performances. Most local chapters have their own WhatsApp and email groups. Some also have Facebook pages.
The NWMI recognized sexual harassment at the media workplace as a serious problem since its inception. The Bangalore network conducted the first survey of sexual harassment at workplace in Indian media back in 2001, even before the national network was launched in January 2002. The NWMI's first statement on a case of sexual harassment in a media workplace dates back to 2003. We continue to stand with all survivors of sexual assault and harassment and pledge to strengthen our struggle to ensure safety for women at work.
2003 NWMI தன்னோட ஸ்டேட்மெண்ட்ஸ் அறிக்கைகளை கொடுத்துருக்காரு. முதல் அறிக்கை எதற்காக வெளிவந்ததுன்னா, மீடியா ஒர்க் பிளேசஸில் ஊடக நிறுவனங்களில் நடக்கக்கூடிய செக்ஷுவல் ஹராஸ்மெண்ட் பற்றின அறிக்கை தான் முதல் அறிக்கை. அன்றிலிருந்து இன்றைக்கு வரைக்கும் மீ டூ மூமெண்ட் பற்றியோ, ஊடக சுதந்திரம் பற்றியோ, அல்லது ஊடக அறம் எங்கெல்லாம் மீறப்படுதோ அதையெல்லாம் பற்றியோ, ஆன்லைன் அப்யூசஸ் பற்றியோ, இந்த மாதிரி எங்க எது நடந்தாலும் முதல் குரலாக NWMI குரல் ஒலிக்குது தன்னுடைய அறிக்கைகள் மூலமாக.
MWMI पत्रकारों के अधिकार, कर्तव्य और हमारी मजबूती सार्वजनिक स्थिति, व्यक्तिगत और सामूहिक दोनों स्थिति में न्याय देने के लिए विभिन्न संघर्षी महिला पत्रकारों के साथ है और एकजुटता और समर्थता दर्शाती है. हम अपने निर्भीक और प्रतिबद्धता में अपने सोशल मीडिया के माध्यम से एक साथ साझा कर सकते हैं.
NWMI's media elections and gender blog was launched during the general elections of 2014. The aim was to look at elections and their media coverage with a gender point of view. In the year 2020, the blog moved to a revamped website.
From 2006 to 2010, the network anchored the Anumeha Yadav Journalist Memorial Award. This award was instituted by the family of the dedicated and talented young journalist who passed away prematurely in 2006.
2017 नेटवर्क समस्त सदस्यों मिलित सहयोग फेलोशिप लॉन्च करा जाइथिला एवं मु होची से फेलोशिप प्रथम प्राप्तकर्ता. वार्षिक फेलोशिप जहाँ कि दूर दूरांत संघर्षपूर्ण एरिया मानकरे जो साहसी टैलेंटेड महिला माने काम करुचंती सेमानक पई प्रयोज्य अटे. मो छड़ा एपर्यंत आम पाखरे 5 जण फेलोस अछंती. अंबिका राजा, महरूप गाजी, कविता कट्टा एवं 2021 रो फेलो अखिला ईश्वरन.
throughout the events, NWMI has been involved in various activities, like we have been participating in Global Media Monitoring Project GMMP since 2010. We carried out surveys on sexual harassment. We brought out a report on situation of media and journalists in Kashmir after the abrogation of Article 370. We also analyzed gender representation in TV panels and reporting during the COVID.
As part of a campaign for independent journalists, a database of 100 media outlets with details of contacts and rates was created. Our Charter for Independent Journalists can be found online.
We also conducted a study on the representation of women in Indian TV news channels in 2019. In 2020, we examined missing gender perspectives in COVID-19 reportage for another study. 12 publications in 7 languages were analyzed by NWMIers from Guwahati to Thrissur.
The best part of our national meets has always been that they are face-to-face, but COVID played a spoiler after the last get-together in Bangalore in early February 2020. We met online in December the same year. The disruption caused by pandemic also resulted in hundreds of journalists and media workers losing their jobs overnight.
Many media organizations have announced large-scale retrenchments and even closures. In addition, staff of media houses across the country have reportedly been coerced into accepting salary cuts, loss of pay, leave, and furloughs.
From May 2020, NWMI conducted a series of open-to-all webinars titled Let Down in Lockdown.
With the help of a team of volunteers from the network, 7 webinars were conducted from May 2020. We also conducted a paid workshop on data journalism. These online events covered topics including dealing with job loss and insecurity, exploring legal options, understanding the opportunities and challenges of freelancing, examining the impact of the pandemic on independent media companies, and checking out established media startups in a difficult environment.
But job losses weren't the worst of journalists' worries. Hundreds of media workers lost their lives during the pandemic. As a tribute,
we launched In Memoriam, Lest We Forget, in 2021, a crowdsourced listing of Indian journalists and media workers who passed away during the deadly second wave of COVID-19 in India.
As the Taliban took over Afghanistan in August 2021, many hard-earned freedoms are being eroded. Particularly women's rights, freedom of speech and freedom of press are under threat. In this context, NWMI has launched a fundraiser for Afghan media women. Funds were raised through the sale of photographs taken by international photographers for the Associated Press.
The collection brought together photographs from some of AP's bravest and most talented visual journalists, providing glimpses into the daily life in Afghanistan for more than 2 decades. We are grateful for the support of many of these photographers who helped amplify the fundraiser. The response was overwhelming, and we managed to collect around $100,000, which has been dispersed to more than 30 Afghan media women over the past 7 months. We also brought out a report with IFJ, interviewing 8 Afghan women journalists.
आज हमारा NWMI नेटवर्क 600 से ज्यादा मेंबर्स के साथ उन्नति की मार्ग पर बढ़ता चला जा रहा है और हमारा कोई अपना ऑफिस, फिजिकल ऑफिस या स्टाफ नहीं है और ये एक पॉजिटिव साइन है क्योंकि इस नेटवर्क के सारे मेंबर्स मिलकर आपसी सहयोग और सामंजस्य से इसे और मजबूत बनाते हैं। बात चाहे आर्थिक सहयोग की हो, समय के योगदान की हो या फिर मीटिंग्स की, इसके सारे मेंबर आपस में जुड़ते हैं और इसे रोज पर रोज विकास के मार्ग में आगे बढ़ाते चले जा रहे हैं।
Don't forget to visit our website nwmindia.org. Our membership details are there.
Also follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We normally try to have face-to-face meetings almost every year, but the pandemic actually put a stop to that. And our Bangalore meeting in 2020 was the last meeting that we had. But that didn't stop us from, from working. And, we have been launching a number of initiatives throughout the pandemic, even though most of them are online. And some of our members are now going to speak about them. Let's get started with the initiatives. We begin with Annie Phillip, who's going to tell us about the tribute to journalists who succumbed to COVID-19, the project about that. Annie, go ahead.
When the second wave of COVID hit India in April 2021, the journalism community was in the thick of it. On the one hand, they were still on ground covering the story. And on the other hand, they found that they were now part of the story, with many journalists falling ill, facing the same difficulties that they were reporting on in accessing healthcare, and many of them dying due to the lack of it. Senior Lucknow journalist Vinay Srivasta's desperate tweets for help, continue to haunt us. So we at NWMI thought that the very least that we could do was to pay tribute through a list of journalists and media workers who had died due to COVID. The Lest We Forget initiative began in April 2021, sourcing the first set of names from a list which was already compiled by the Geneva-based NGO Press Emblem Campaign. We then added on to the list by crowdsourcing and by reaching out to NWMI members, press clubs, media organizations, and other associations in different parts of the country. So it's been a step-by-step kind of effort, and we've been putting this together. Apart from the list, we had also put out a statement and a list of demands from the government and from the employers, from media organizations themselves. So in our list, we've tried to include photographs of those who've died and links to obituaries wherever they've appeared. We've also expanded the list to include not just journalists, but also media support workers, those who are in support roles. Today, that list stands at 625, and it is nowhere near complete. In fact, we still have a couple of sets of lists to go through, verify, and add on. It's still an ongoing exercise. Thankfully, at least the numbers are no longer coming in a wave. They are coming in a trickle, but we hope that we can close this list soon, and years down the line, remember what had happened in our profession. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annie. Now, Jagriti is going to take us through the NWMI's Jobs Initiative and the Letdown and Lockdown webinar series.
The first lockdown was announced on March 25, 2020, and within 2 to 3 weeks, sackings across various newsrooms had started, and every journalist was anxious that they would lose their job next. Many freelancers were talking about how it was becoming harder to get work. Yet there was an absolute silence on social media. Celebrity journalists, editors, all kept quiet. That's when NWMI thought that we will start talking about it and make it a topic of public discussion. So as early as April, we decided we would reach out to journalists who wanted to talk about what they were seeing around them and how it was affecting them. And 2 of our members opened their DMs on Twitter to both male and female journalists. In a matter of days, we had up to 10 to 15 queries. A woman journalist from Kerala who was supporting her dependent mother was worried about how she would manage her finances if she lost her job. In Mumbai, a male journalist was worried about his family if he got COVID and lost his job because of that. Raksha Kumar and Durga Nandini, NWMI members who were operating the DMs, said people were battling serious mental health issues and they needed professional help. And so we started compiling a list of mental health helplines across the country and put it out on Twitter. This effort then matured as we thought of different ways to provide help. Over the next 5 months, starting from May, we held 6 webinars on issues of immediate importance, thanks to a lot of guidance from Amu Joseph, Lakshmi Murthy, and Geeta Seshu. These topics were on how to cope with job losses, labor rights, how to be a freelance journalist, how to pitch stories, and how to start a media startup. In November, we organized a data journalism workshop. And finally, with all the expertise gained in organizing virtual events, we had our first virtual NWMI anniversary. A big shout out to Supriya Nair, Aishwarya Murthy, Leena Regunath, Mekpi Sitlo, and Jisha, as well as her husband, and many others who moderated these sessions, roped in guests, etc., etc. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jagriti. I would like to now call upon Anumeha Yadav. Anumeha is going to tell us about workplace sexual harassment and the NWMI's critique of the judgment in the Tarun Tejpal case. Anumeha, over to you.
Thanks, Supriya. So one of NWMI's core mandates remain the implementation of the laws against sexual harassment at workplaces and highlighting women journalists' experiences of discrimination and sexual violence and thinking about how further their rights can be protected. This past year, we witnessed the passing of the Tejpal rape case judgment, which we see as a massive setback for the Indian women's rights movement and safety for working women in particular. We at NWMI responded with a deep dive into this judgment. It was a marathon team effort with 12 of our members working on it over a week on this analysis. We analyzed this 500-page judgment, how it had denied the woman journalist justice. And we also in our critique try to put together a coherent chronology of this case, which though it's been in a fast-track court, it's gone on for 8 years. So it becomes difficult for the public to even understand what happened when, and it becomes easier for them to confuse the case a bit. So the court had not only acquitted former editor Tarun Tejpal, who was accused of rape, it had gone a step further, attacked and accused the sexual assault survivor, who at the time of her complaint had been an employee within the magazine edited by Tejpal. It accused that she was not, the judgment language was such that she's not an ideal victim, she didn't do enough to protect herself. It had gone into citing her personal history. All of this is not only inappropriate and unjust, it is illegal. It violates the Supreme Court guidelines. It ignores the criminal law amendment of 2013, which makes a woman's testimony on consent paramount in deciding these cases. We also have to remember that the Tejpal, when the case was first reported, it had come right after the Verma Committee report recommendations had been incorporated to expand what constitutes rape. And it came a few years before the global Me Too movement. So when this young woman journalist spoke about what had happened to her, it was a watershed moment, and she had courageously spoken truth to power within her organization. She had pointed out that no Vishaka committee existed at the organization when she requested an internal probe. So in our comprehensive analysis, we showed how the judgment had allowed digital forensics evidence in a manner which undermined her fundamental right to privacy. When the journalist said that she cannot just open a mail and mobile because it compromises her sources, even that was held against her. She reports on gender, and even this was held against her. So we think these are very grave implications for what follows next. And our analysis then led to some further discussion on, especially on digital privacy issue for survivors. And though the law has been more progressive, how can it actually be incorporated into practice? The past year was also, there was also some good news, especially in the Priya Ramani acquittal in defamation case filed by MJ Akbar, in which the courts acknowledged and accepted that a woman can voice her grievances even decades after the misconduct. It observed that right of reputation can't be protected at the cost of dignity. This is especially important when the accused try to stifle complainants by resorting to criminal defamation. This past year, we issued several public statements condemning rape and death threats received by Asianet news reporter PR Praveena against orchestrated hate attacks on women journalists Meena Kotwal, Anna Vetikar, Rana Ayub, and we reiterate our solidarity with them. And also against writer Meena Kandasamy, Tamil filmmaker Leena Manimekalai. They've all faced a lot of attacks.
Yes. I got it. Okay. Thank you.
So, I'll conclude here, and anyone who's interested in further information on the network's work on this, the website has several of these statements. It has resources, and in 2019, the network had published a survey and a report called Gender at Work, which is a survey of 500 women journalists' experience with sexual harassment in the workplace, what kind of mechanisms exist, and so on. And you can find this on our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Anumeha. Anjali Mathur has joined us, and she will be talking about the website. Anjali, over to you.
I'm going to start by sharing some of the amazing facts about our website. So first, you would be surprised to know that we have published some 489 articles, of which about more than 100 have been published just over the last 12 months. So it's quite amazing, and it's a lot of interesting, and there are a lot of interesting features that we have carried. Then actually the website is a repository for all this, a lot of the work that the network does, and also particularly for all the statements issued by NWMI, which are also quite amazing and quite a large number. In fact, as many as 42 we have issued against sexual harassment at work. So this section on sexual harassment is quite interesting, and it has a lot of information which is useful to anyone who is interested in the subject. So it has explainers, it talks about the laws, it carries the survey that we did on media houses and how they deal with this, and it has a sharing of women's experiences. So not surprisingly, this statement section is among the most viewed by visitors who come to the website. We find that the traffic to the website spikes every time we launch a new initiative. And in fact, one of the biggest spikes in our number of visitors was when we put up the Lest We Forget list of journalists who had passed away during this COVID wave. And other job initiative, funding for Afghan journalists. These were all initiatives which attracted increased number of visitors to the website. This website is actually the fourth avatar of www.nwmindia.org. And in each of its avatar, it has served the network in important ways. The first version, which was launched just a year after NWMI came into being, was served like the network's window to the world. It showcased our work and who we were, what we believed in. Plus, it also carried a lot of opportunities for our members, and this proved to be very useful because some of our members were able to actually get scholarships and jobs which had been which they had been informed about in the website. But if you ask me, the greatest legacy of the original website is still with us. If you look around and see the NWMI logo, that was created for the website, and it has now become that, and the masthead, which was designed by Manjula Padmanabhan, is now our identity. and we use it everywhere. We have redesigned the website 3 times after that. And mainly the provocation for that has been in our attempt to keep up with technology and changing ways of communication, changing modes of communication. The present website is responsive, which means it's mobile friendly, and it is also very closely connected to social media. So to our social media channels. And we find that a lot of actually what the backend shows us is that a lot of the younger generation is accessing the website, and we also find that this version of the website is much easier to update and maintain. What it does not get enough of is ideas and content from all of you. So please oblige us and help us to make our website a vibrant hub for all our activities. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Anjali. That was a very nice of you. Now, I'd like to call upon Padmaja Shaw to talk about the GMMP project. Padmaja, are you there? Right. Okay. Moving on, we'll come back to Padmaja. Geeta Seshu is going to talk about the NWMI FSC Sabrang India joint seminar on Pegasus and the deep state right now. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Supriya. In July 2021, news broke out on the spying of thousands of prominent dissidents across the world by the use of the Pegasus spyware owned by the Israeli-based company NSO. In India, this tool was used to conduct surveillance of around 300 people, including 40 journalists, human rights activists, student leaders, scientists, professors, lawyers, politicians belonging to opposition parties, activists for labor rights, health and against mining, citizens like the complainant in the Ranjan Gogoi sexual harassment case too. So a week after these really shocking disclosures, a discussion which was titled India's Deep State, Is Any Citizen Safe?, was hosted by the Free Speech Collective, Network of Women in Media India and Sabrang India on July 26, 2021. Our first speaker was the Wire's co-founder editor, M.K. Venu, who said Pegasus was an issue that concerns the integrity of democratic institutions around the world. Our second speaker was the Software Freedom Law Center legal director, Mishi Chowdhury, and she pointed out that there was no judicial or parliamentary oversight for this kind of surveillance. The third speaker was senior lawyer Mihir Desai, who said the challenge to surveillance of any kind was on the basis of the right to privacy. While our fourth speaker was the Internet Freedom Foundation director, Apar Gupta, who said Pegasus would classify as a cyber weapon. I'd moderated this discussion on behalf of Free Speech Collective and NWMI, and Tisa Setalwad on behalf of Sabrang India had given the concluding remarks. There was a lot of discussion, there was a Q&A, and it was really interesting. And as all of you know now, of course, a high-level committee has been formed by the Supreme Court to probe this Pegasus issue. It's headed by Justice Ravindran. We are waiting for the report to be submitted, and we're also waiting for news from the court on its ruling on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Geeta. I'd like Jayanti Buruda to talk about the NWMI fellowship, please. Next.
2017 में नेटवर्क के सभी सदस्य मिलकर एक फेलोशिप लॉन्च की और मैं उस फेलोशिप का पहले प्राप्त करता हूं। वार्षिक फेलोशिप चुनौतीपूर्ण परिस्थिति, दूर दराज के क्षेत्र में काम करने वाली टैलेंटेड महिला पत्रकारों के लिए हैं।
Women journalists who are residents of India from Adivasi, Dalit, religious ethnic minorities, or any other disadvantaged groups are eligible to apply. They could be working in any Indian languages, in any medium, print, television, radio, online, or photojournalism. So far, we have had 5 fellows. Jayanti Buruda won the fellowship in 2017, Ambika Raja in 2018, Maruf Ghazi in 2019, and Kavita Katta in 2020. Our 2021 fellow, Akhila Easwaran, was all set to join us today, but as she's in an area with bad network, she sent us this video message.
Hello everyone, this is Akhila Easwaran, photojournalist from Chennai. I'm happy to be part of this family and wishing everyone for the successful 20 years of NWMI. I'm the recipient of this year's Fellowship Award. My project is to document fisher folks in the coastal region of Tamil Nadu. I've started my project 2 weeks ago. So far it's going great. It's a great learning process. And I thank NWMI for providing me with this opportunity. Mr. Rajiv has volunteered to be my mentor in teaching some advanced techniques in digital photography. It's very useful. I have also applied for my master's in journalism and mass communication. For the past 2 months, I have been receiving a lot of phone calls and messages from NWMI members. This kind of support is something every budding journalist needed. NWMI is a great platform where we can contact our seniors and ask for their guidance and all. So thanks again. Sorry I couldn't catch up with the program. So I'm hoping to see you all soon in person. So I'm sending you all my love and gratitude. Thank you.
That was very sweet, actually. Right, now moving on, Sweta Singh is now going to talk about the study conducted by the NWMI on gender perspectives in COVID-19 reportage. Over to you, Sweta.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible. I'm traveling, so just wanted to check on that. We kind of did a study titled Locating Gender Perspectives in COVID-19 Reportage in India. So this was an analysis of print media, the newspapers coverage for March 2020 and September 2020. So this project was actually an initiative of a senior journalist, senior independent journalist and network member, Samira Khan. So she got in touch with me, so I kind of joined the project. And the project was actually sponsored by the Population First and got support from UNFPA and of course the network NWMI. So why we did this study? As we know, women are not seriously represented in media all over the world. So more so in developing countries. So we were just trying to understand how this kind of maps out during COVID times, knowing very well that the coverage will be even lesser. So as we kind of know that the Global Gender Report of the World Economic Forum 2021 shows that because of COVID-19 pandemic, women will now have to wait 135 years, a bit more than 135 years instead of 99 years to close this increased gender gap. So we thought of understanding how during COVID pandemic, newspapers were performing in terms of factoring gender perspectives. This was a kind of an academic endeavor for me because I was trying to understand how these patterns might emerge. So Samira was actually very helpful in kind of taking the whole project, leading it through, and we were trying to map the coverage of 12 newspapers across 7 different languages. So for this, we had the immense support of the network members. Some of these network members are Prachi, Pingle, Milka Rao, Parul Sharma, Sumita Jaiswal, Nita Kulhatkar, Prachi Bari, Uttara Gangopadhyay, Sudarshana Chakrabarti, Shruti AS, Vidya CK, Chitra Anthem, and of course, Amu and Lakshmi, they were all through with us. So we were kind of getting all the support from network members. These members kind of helped us with a lot of data collection and monitoring. So we couldn't have done it without their contribution. So this study actually examines how stories related to women and other marginalized genders got represented during pandemic, and we engaged with both qualitative as well as quantitative studies. So what did we really find? So as we expected, I'll just discuss a couple of them and will leave for those who may be interested in knowing more about it to read the report, which is available with the network. It is also available with the Population First website, also on the People's Archive of Rural India now. So essentially, one thing that we found, as we expected, that the study, the presence, role, and concerns, as well as the voices of women and the trans people and the marginalized gender were largely missing. So their perspectives were missing too. So, for example, one of the data that we had showed that out of 6,110 stories, only 299 stories had some significant presence of women and other marginalized genders. So there was some gender perspective there. So this is less than 5%. It's actually 4.8%. So there were missing voices. So news stories failed to include women and other marginalized genders, and they were not there as sources or experts majorly. And even when a story had an issue that directly impacted them, they were not visible. So a lot of stories were majorly about hard data related to infection, testing, treatment, etc. Another finding that came across through this study was that there was a lot of coverage of stories where women and stigma were interconnected. So there were lots of stories about how women are either responsible for the spread of the infection, so they are spreaders of the infection. So one of these stories was like, for example, the Kanika Kapoor Bollywood singer treatment case, but this was not just confined to one celebrity. It was also seen with women from the ordinary walks of life. So there were a lot of stories where women were either being they were not treated at par, or they were being stigmatized for and they or maybe they were seen as the spreaders of COVID. So I will leave it here, and in case if you be interested, you may look at the larger report available with the network and the websites I have mentioned earlier. Thank you so much. That's it from my side.
Right. Thank you so much, Sweta. We are now going to go over to Sumita Jaiswal, who's going to talk about the webinar organized by NWMI Bihar to highlight gender inequality in media coverage. Over to you, Sumita.
Hi, Supriya and all. Can you listen me? Though I can't see myself on video. Can you listen me?
Yeah, we can hear you, yes.
Okay. Okay. First of all, cheers to the 20th anniversary of NWMI. Congratulations and celebrations for the 20 years of solidarity. First of all, I send my regards to all the founder members of the NWMI. Love and hug to all the friends there in network. And now coming to the topic, that is strengthening gender equality in media. When we talk about gender equality in media, I personally feel that if the stories of all the women in media truly told, that will make a novel. And actually, today I want to share what motivated me to take an initiative and hammer home the gender discourse in media. Here I want to give some one or two
Sumita,
examples.
sorry to interrupt you. Can you turn your video on? We would love to see you talk.
Yeah, I have turned it, but I can't see myself. My video is on. See, I have now stopped my video, but now I have switched it on, but I can't see myself.
Oh dear, sorry. That's okay. Go ahead. Carry on. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay. So I was telling that most of us must have come across headlines like "4 बच्चों की मां प्रेमी के संग फरार हो गई, 5 बेटियों के पिता की सड़क दुर्घटना में मौत." It's basically the male's mentality. These headlines are a natural product of male's mentality. They don't bother what kind of effect these headlines will have in our society. Here, I want all of you to remember that Bollywood film or Diwar, where some people engraved on the hands of little Amitabh Bachchan, "Tera baap chor hai." and see how this one line traumatized that child throughout his life. And it has such a deep impact on his side, on that little child, that he turns into a gangster. Likewise, letters published in a black and white in the newspaper have deep impact across society. So we need to be very careful that not a single line should be wrong in the newspapers. Here I remember once the DGP of Bihar stated regarding a news that लड़कियां अपनी अदाओं से लड़कों को फंसाती हैं. And to my surprise, most of the very reputed, including some very reputed web portals, flashed that headline as it is. So can you imagine? Hence, thinking that media should be at the forefront of creating an enabling environment for women and girls in the society, we NWMI, along with UNICEF, conceptualized the webinar, Strengthening Gender Discourse in Media. And of course, we involved editors and senior journals of the leading newspapers of Bihar, including Hindi, English, and Urdu newspapers. Now, then clearly the objective of the program was to have a meaningful dialogue on how to incorporate gender perspective in media coverage and thus promote gender sensitive, gender responsive, and gender transformative journalism. And thanks to Amu, thanks to Lakshmi, Samira, thanks to Samira Khan, Sweta Singh, Parul ji, and all the members of Bihar that they supported me in organizing this program and put their selfless effort to make the program happen. And of course, I'm very happy that program was a great success. As many as 150 people were connected in this program, and they remained there till the end of the program. Really a meaningful dialogue took place, and editors, they agreed that yes, we need to promote gender discourse in media. And they also shared their experience and their newsroom working, how they promote gender equality, and how they ensure gender perspective in their news. So at the end now, I think I have not taken more than 2 minutes. At the end now, I want to say just, this world shows us limitations. तुमसे नहीं होगा. ये जो सेंटेंस है, ये हम लोगों ने बचपन से लेके अभी तक सुना होगा, हम सब ने सुना होगा कभी ना कभी. So let us now break the chain of limitations and make promote the gender sensitive, gender responsive, and gender transformative journalism. Thank you. That's all for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sumita. I think Padmaja has finally joined us, so I would call upon her and ask her to talk about the GMMP project. Padmaja, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Please switch on your, yeah, brilliant. We can see you.
Thank you. Greetings and many happy returns of the day to NWMI for his 20th birthday. As all of you are aware, NWMI has been associated with the Global Media Monitoring Project since 2010. The GMMP is the world's largest running research intervention into news media. Every 5 years since 1995, it has been taking a snapshot of gender in news media on an ordinary news day. This longitudinal data allows for introspection, course correction, and for finding a way forward to improve the presence of women in media. The 2020 round was to be done in February, March of 2020. Though both the global team and the Indian team were set to begin on schedule, because of the global pandemic and the lockdown that followed, it had to be deferred. However, after a couple of postponements of the schedule and reworking of plans, 29 September 2020 was announced as the monitoring day. Following several postponements, the teams had to be reconstituted all over because some of the earlier volunteers were no longer available to us. Finally, we had 30 coders representing 14 languages spread across 14 states who helped code 20 newspapers, 13 channels, 5 radio channels, 8 news websites, 8 Twitter news handles, and so on. The coders were largely members of NWMI. Some were from the media and some from media schools. It was a large team of 30 members, but coding and the processing went off smoothly. So did the coordination with the global team. Contrary to the previous rounds, this time we had to do all our preparatory work, selection of media, coder training, trials, and all other necessary interactions online. We did not meet anyone in person through the entire process. Finally, we completed the project and put it out sometime in December, I think, last year. The report is now on NWMI website. And before I close, I'm not mentioning some of the findings, significant findings that actually in the previous panel when they were discussing about health and environment and so on, these issues came up. And that during the pandemic time, the news priorities kind of shifted in a positive direction. In the previous rounds, it was politics and government at the top, and the next most covered thing was crime and violence. But during the pandemic time, crime and violence moved off the top priority. Politics remained on top, but then next was economy, and then health and science took over. So it was a nice change to see. However, the findings were rather depressing in terms of comparison to global performance or achievements of women, greater participation of women. We have done very badly compared to Asia also. So the details can be had from the report that's there on the website. And before I close, I would really like to thank NWMI team of volunteers, Lakshmi and Amu, for all their support in this work. And thanks for giving me this opportunity to present.
Thank you, Padmaja. Next, we have Yirmiyan Arthur, who's going to talk about Journalists for Afghanistan, the NWMI photo fundraiser for Afghan women journalists in danger after Taliban takeover. Yirmiyan, over to you.
Hi. So some people have asked, firstly, why Afghanistan? We know the needs of the Indian women themselves are plenty. So why Afghanistan? There are several reasons for this, but one of the most pertinent being the fact being solidarity, that showing solidarity is important. So how did JFA begin? Ironically, it began as a sense of helplessness, actually. This helplessness that a lot of us at the NWMI expressed with the rapid takeover of the Taliban. August 15th, I think is a day we could pinpoint to as the day this the initiative started as an idea. The AP replied positively and very promptly to our request and the proposal of using the archival material to start this fundraiser. None of us had actually run a fundraiser before, and certainly not of the scale. So a lot of technical hurdles we faced in between, which is a pain to even think about and to remember just now. We were fortunate to team up with the Media Safety and Solidarity Fund, the MSSF in Australia, who were really great. They were able to understand our needs and have made this collaboration really hassle-free. So for the fundraiser itself, the works of 24 photographers were curated and added to this fundraiser. 4 of the 24 were women journalists, women photojournalists. One of them was Anya Niedenhaus, who was killed while covering the run-up to the presidential elections in 2014. I must take this opportunity to thank Anya for her contribution to journalism, and that I still miss seeing the world through her lens. The other photographer is Farzana Wahidi, who is known to be the first professional Afghan women photojournalist. and gone for 3 weeks. Is a total of $100,000 US. For some of us, the work ended then, but for some other people, the work began just then, you know, October, first week of October. So there are two specifically two NWMI members, Lakshmi Murthy and Annie Phillip, who have been I'm sorry. Am I back?
You're back now. We lost you for a second, Yirmiyan. If you could just repeat that.
I'm so sorry. Okay. Where I think maybe Annie Phillip and Lakshmi, the part about the post fundraising.
Yes.
Yeah. So Lakshmi and Annie right now have been heading this process of screening and liaison with the government and with the MSS. MSSF has been totally handling the dispersal of funds because that's where the money is also part. They have this more than 35 Afghan women journalists have received help from the Journalists for Afghanistan, and the amount ranging from $500 to $3,000 depending on the need of each journalist. Just to give this a more personal look, two of the journalists who reached out to us were pregnant. They have now safely delivered the babies, one in Kabul and one outside the country. A 28-year-old radio journalist had just removed her teeth and was meant to get a set of false teeth, but then the Taliban takeover happened before that. She had no means of income, and the Journalist for Afghanistan was able to help her smile.
Yirmiyan, we're losing you. Can you turn off your video, perhaps? No, we're losing your voice. If you could turn off your video, maybe we can hear you. Thank you.
Am I better?
Oh, much better.
Now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm in Kohima in Nagaland, and you know it can get really spotty, the internet. Was I fine till now? Do I need to repeat anything?
No, please go ahead. No, you don't
Can
have
I
to.
just
Please
carry
just
on?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you. And like I said, as winter came, some of the members who have been actively in touch with the journalists there were receiving photographs of families with heaters and with daily necessities like oil and wheat and, you know, all of that. It just made us feel like I said, sweetheart, Mama, sorry. I'm sorry. So NWMI members are still in touch with some of the journalists who have reached Canada and US, and we're helping them get in touch with other organizations who can help them settle in and hopefully help them find some work and to help them continue reporting. Also, as an outcome of the fundraiser, NWMI, in collaboration with the International Federation of Journalists, will release a report on International Human Rights Day on December 10th. The report, which is called In Their Own Words, Afghan Women Journalists Speak, is a collection of the narratives of women journalists from Afghanistan. I'd like to add that we greatly owe the success of this fundraiser to photographers like David Gudenfelder and Elizabeth Dalziel, Farzana Wahidi, Mustafa Qureshi, and the rest of the great crew at the AP, and also to somebody like Amy Vitale, who is not a part of the AP, but with more than 1 million followers, she helped us amplify and constantly. I believe what helped this fundraiser be a success was the great collaborations we were fortunate enough to have. So people, yes, collaboration is the way to go. And thank you very much. And congratulations to all of us at NWMI.
Thanks a lot, Yirmiyan. Usha Raman is now going to talk to us about media monitoring project leading to the report Staging Aggressive Masculinity. Usha, over to you.
Thank you, Supriya. And it's been wonderful to hear about all the work that NWMI has been doing. So just very quickly about the report. So it came out of the fact that for many years, we've been acknowledging that we cannot think about women in the media without thinking more broadly about the gender discourse and the impact of patriarchal mindsets on how we are in the world. So when the Gertie Zentrum of Delhi invited NWMI to collaborate on a project looking at masculinities in the media, it was something that, I think the NWMI felt that it was right down our alley. So Lakshmi and Amu actually pulled me out of my academic ivory tower to participate in the project. And we decided to look closely at how masculinities were performed in journalism. So moving away from looking at content and looking at representation of gender but instead trying to understand how masculinist norms pervaded the way we do journalism and presented the news. So we put together a research framework. We created a monitoring tool. There hadn't been such a tool available in the research space. In September last year, with the help of a team of NWMI members, we monitored 31 television channels representing news content in 13 languages, including English, over a week in September, as I said. So in addition to looking at the news and panel discussions during prime time, we also looked at a selected set of social media posts to understand how masculinity discourse happened in popular media. And we also examined a small number of cases, trying to understand if we could identify instances of positive gender norms being practiced. So, of course, no surprises in our results. We found that aggressive masculinity pervaded news presentation, exhibited in behaviors across genders, and particularly was noticeable on panel shows. Our findings were the basis of a report that was first discussed in a consultative meeting in Delhi. And this was an in-person meeting, one of the pleasures of participating in this project. So we had a broader group of stakeholders at that meeting, activists, practitioners, and academics. And based on that discussion, we came up with a set of recommendations that we hope will be taken up by the media houses and educational institutions to both sensitize and train journalists to adopt more positive, gender-positive dialogic forms of news presentation. You can see the full report on the NWMI website. And, of course, we owe a big thanks to the team that contributed, 27 coders and many others who participated in the in-person consultation in Delhi. And of course, the many email exchanges after that. The report actually generated quite a lot of interest in the media, and we're hoping that the recommendations can be disseminated more widely going forward, hopefully prompting news outlets to take the suggestions on board. So thanks again for asking me to report on this, and thanks to the entire team that took part, and a very happy 20th anniversary to NWMI.
Thanks so much, Usha. Amu Joseph is now going to talk about our gender, media, and election blocks. Over to you, Amu.